Hello, one and all, and welcome to another video on the Baggers Chat YouTube channel. My name is Mitchell Pattinson, and as always, we are joined by Ethan Duffy, and it's been probably a good maybe week and a half, 2 weeks, if I was to guess, Duffy boys, since we've done a video and a bit of an update, but we thought we would have probably a bit of a few weeks off before something big was to come out, and I think something came out today, Duffy boy, which is pretty big. We don't know if it's 100% substantial. Like, we don't know if it's 100% correct, but I think there is some substance to it from obviously with the news last year about Christian Petracca and Melbourne D's potentially open to a trade. So the reason why I brought up last year is because Petracca came out in the public. Not necessarily the public. There was a lot of talk around Petracca and kind of the project Petracca and potentially finding a new home, whether that will be Collingwood or Carlton. They were the two teams that he really wanted to go to last year. But Tom Morris tweeted today about Petracca. So the tweet is very delicately and cautiously, things are beginning to move with Christian Petracca. Both parties would be open to a trade, but neither wants to be seen as demanding a breakup. Petracca is not as adamant as he was in 2024, and the Demons still value him very highly. So that's quite a big sort of news there, Duffy boy. We know how much he wanted to leave the club last year, and I don't know how much really that changes the news from this year. I think there still is conversation around Petracca potentially leaving the club. I think there needs to be some sort of I think this year will be different I think he finds a new home, me personally. But I'll throw it straight to you. How are you? It's been a few weeks since we've touched base with the Carlton Football Club and Baggers Chat. But how are you, as I just said? And first thoughts on this, mate?
No, I'm well. Obviously, there's been bits and pieces of news, nothing major until really today. And I know it's not, he's not going, I want to go to Carlton, I want to go to Carlton. I think we both know that. But I think, like you said, my initial thoughts go to last year and the teams he wanted to play for when he wanted out. So they've seemed to kind of mend that kind of relationship, Melbourne and Petracca. And obviously he went through a lot with his ribs in that last year. It was almost a near-death experience, Pato. So he went through a fair bit, but clearly Melbourne's stance has changed. I think that's the biggest part for me. That's from what Tom Morris said. That's the biggest part for me. That kind of went, okay, like maybe they're open to do it. And another big thing for me is they've got a new coach. They've got a brand new coach. And I know during that selection process, they had the presentations from all the different candidates. And one of the big points that Stephen King said in his pitch, he showed his best 24 out of the current list at Melbourne. He listed it. He listed the team that he would put on round one next year, and he had Petracca and Oliver in the midfield. So obviously he wants both of them, but that doesn't mean maybe he changes his mind and whatever, and the circumstances change. But yeah, it's an interesting one because I know a lot of people really want to get him through the door, and I would love him at Carlton. I think he would be fantastic. Is it what we need? I'm not sure. I think he hasn't been, even though he came second in the best and fairest somehow at Melbourne this year. I'm not sure how he finished above Cozzy Pickett, but he played every game, and clearly, like, he just doesn't seem like himself at the moment, does he? When you watch him, and it's not that bull. And I know we went through the stuff last year, but maybe a fresh start, Pato, brings out the best in him. That would be my positive. If we got him, I'd be going, okay, fresh start. He's got his new team. He's got a big club who want to be pushing for finals next season with a pretty good list. I'd say, not, taking my Carlton glasses off. I think it'd be a fairly half decent list. You got good young players. You got good experience in that side, and he can add to that. And he's got that explosive match winning kind of experience, premiership player, Pato. And I just want to hear your thoughts because I'd be happy if we got him. I'm not going to be going, oh no, I'd be bloody fucking excited. But I want to know your thoughts.
I think So he is contracted.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
so we obviously would need to make a trade. And I would be open to it if we aren't paying as much money as we probably would if he was out of contract and we were paying the whole salary. So that's another conversation where Melbourne might just hold firm and they know that they all the cards are in their hands saying, I mean, like we kind of are with Charlie Curnow with like he's a required player, he's a contracted player, he's not going anywhere. But I think it's a big difference from Petracca and Curnow because I think Curnow is more likely to leave the club when Petracca has actually stated that he still is happy at the club. He isn't as keen to leave the club as he was last year, yet he still stayed last year.
Yeah. Yep.
And I know that last year probably there wasn't really enough clubs that he wanted to really get the deal done. So I think here it is a little bit different. I still feel like if it's down to Carlton and Collingwood, I still feel like Carlton, we get it done. I just feel like we have more assets. I feel like we have more picks and players to give away where we can get that deal done. When I just don't see Collingwood being able to get that deal done, but also being able to fit him in the salary cap. I just don't see it happening. I feel like Carlton, we know that there's a lot of money now freed up where if we also do now trade away Charlie Curnow with also TDK and Sauce both leaving, we have a lot of money to throw away. And whether we do that this year or whether we move into next year with the same list and maybe top up with a few, maybe 3 or 4 players, and then 2026 when we know that Zach Butters is out of contract, there's a few other big fishes out of contract next year who will then be entering free agency.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit easier to lure these players into the club. But I guess my question is, so he's 29 at the moment. He turns 30 in January 2026. So I still feel like he probably has 3 or 4 years left in his prime. We just don't know with the injuries that he's suffered the past few years and whether he's just really kind of just not happy at the D's, which probably is fair.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that is kind of the reason why he isn't playing to what we all know he can produce. Because I've seen it this year and last year. He's just not himself, as you've said. I'm quite worried about that because I don't want to bring in a player and potentially trade the farm for him to come into the club and then pretty much produce exactly what he was doing at Melbourne. I don't think that will be the case. I just feel like he is quite unhappy at the D's. And I feel like now, since they kind of are heading towards that rebuild stage with obviously a new coach, not a major rebuild, but just a few players leaving. And another player that we might even touch on is Bailey Fritsch as well, potentially being a part of this trade because he might look like he might be at the door as well. And he would be a great player to join our forward line, Duffy Boy. But I guess just your thoughts on that. Like, is the age a factor? And also knowing the way that he plays, he is a big bull. And we already have that with Cripps and Hewitt. And we are also bringing another bull in. And I don't think his kicking is necessarily his biggest strength. I don't think it's poor. I still think it's very good. Like, if not, like, that's probably an understatement. I think it's still very much AFL level and probably even better than that. But there's other players that we probably could target that we might get more out of than Christian Petracca entering into our midfield. Like, hearing that, are you more optimistic about what he could provide to Carlton next year, or are you a little bit nervous about what he might provide for the Blues next year?
Yeah, I think when you look at a lot of players, there's many pros and cons. That always kind of goes into my head when, a name gets popped up or linked to Carlton. I go, okay, what are the positives? What are the negatives? And I kind of look at, I'd kind of determine picking up a player or kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but if the pros outweigh the cons, that's when I'm like, okay, we can go for this guy. And I think in terms of Petracca, the pros obviously outweigh the cons. So for me, the big positives: he's a match winner. He's a goal kicker. He can play forward. He kicked that bag against us last year. I remember he kept us kept them in the game in that wet weather game, and we could not stop him. Could you look at you look at Petracca and Cripps? They don't have to play in the same midfield all the time. Why don't you rotate them forward? Give Cripps a little bit more forward time. Then you make it a little bit unpredictable. You know what I mean? You might throw Petracca at full forward. If you don't have Charlie, you're going to have to find other avenues to score. And obviously, you touched on Fritsch. But in terms of the Petracca situation, it opens different doors. You know what I mean? Like Petracca and Cripps might be in a rotation. which is when you think about it, you go, gee whiz. Like, of course, you'd rather them both be in the same midfield at the same time, which I'm sure they would be at most part. But imagine that in a big game, Pato, and you can flick the switch. You can have a rest up forward. You got Petracca coming out of the goal square. Like it's things like that which makes teams good. And he's a match winner, and I think he will just rejuvenate his career if he does end up going to not only just Carlton, I think anywhere. I think anywhere. I know he's linked to Collingwood. I know he's linked to Hawthorn massively, but I don't know if Hawthorn can get Merritt and him over the line, in my opinion. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they're looking at. But for me, Pato, I'm not worried about his age. He's the ultimate professional. I know he goes to Austria he's sponsored by Red Bull. He goes to Austria every year and does his own, like, with the world's best, best of the best of the best, gets the best out of himself. And I know a guy like that would have the ultimate respect for a guy like Patrick Cripps, because they're both around that same age. They're both the best, both of them are in the top echelon players of the competition. And, imagine him coming in and Cripps going, this guy wants to buy into what we're doing at Carlton. That will rejuvenate him as a player. I think Cripps actually rejuvenated himself once the young guys started to come through the team. And I know we've touched on that, but yeah, I just think, gee, it'd be when you think about it, Pato, you go, gee whiz, you go Walsh, Petracca, and Cripps. That if I say that and people listening right now, just think about it. Just close your eyes for a second and just visualize that, because you go, wow. You go, okay, that's a match-winning midfield, in my opinion. And that doesn't include, guys like George Hilda who's played fantastic. And they'll obviously rotate through there. But just think about those three names in the midfield. Holy shit. That's just all I'm going to say, Pato. Well, what are your thoughts when you think about it in your head and you go, gee, imagine round one next year and you got Track, Cripps, and Walsh. Like, of course, it's, we're not saying this is going to happen lock, but then it's out there now. He could be traded, and we should be one of the teams, in my opinion, that goes for it.
I personally think the two teams that will be in contention is Carlton and Collingwood, as we've already said. Yeah. I just don't think he would explore looking at another club. Maybe a Hawthorn is probably the only other team in that conversation. But I think Zach Merritt going to Hawthorn is almost like anything but a lock. I think that is pretty much like over the line. So now I don't think Hawthorn are able to then bring in Petracca. I know everyone's saying that they have a huge war chest of money. I don't think that's right at all. I know that they are trading away James Warple, but I don't think he's on bloody multi-million-dollar contracts, Daffy boy. So, so I don't think Merritt and Petracca will be at Hawthorn.
It'd almost be too many of the kind of same, like position. Yeah. And I don't want to put my Hawks hat on here, but you look at their team, they've got so many superstars coming through, young guys, wizards. And, I think Weddle is almost going to be one of the best players in the competition. He needs to sign on. You know what I mean? And funnily enough, speaking about Weddle, my mum's favourite player, one of her favourite players outside of Carlton is Josh Weddle. And she goes, Ethan, is there any way we can just chuck millions of dollars at this guy? And he would be one of those types of guys that teams will be chucking millions at. So I don't know if the Hawks can really, like you said, afford to bring both of them in.
Yeah, I think I personally think that now I don't want to be a downer on this situation. I just think we have other problems to look at. Now I think the name is great, Christian Petracca. Whenever I hear that alongside Cripps and Walsh and Chera and Hewitt, and then he could potentially go forward and maybe kick 40 goals a season, that does excite me. But I'm also thinking, do we throw somewhat the farm at Petracca, or do we find other assets this year to kind of to bring into the club for next year and improve us with what our kicking is shit. So that's just one thing that we need to say. Our ball use and kicking is shit. So I think it's good that we found a guy like Campbell Chesser who has requested a trade to Carlton, and that is very much likely to get done. So that's a good thing. And then we also are choosing to trade away a guy like Elijah Hollins that might not be at the club next year. I still hope he stays, but that's a guy that has that ball use and has that great kicking. So I feel like if we trade these guys away, that's fine. But we also need to find guys that we also need to find players that can come in and fill that void that we're kind of trading away. And I mean, we so want Zach Butters. I think that is just unrealistic this year. So I still feel like we have a good list, even if we don't add Petracca to our midfield this year. But then next year, 2026, that's when you can go after Zach Butters. But then I'm thinking Cripple will be 31 next year, heading towards 32 in 2027. Maybe we do put all chips into our one basket here, right now, and try and contend for 2026. Because also it's Michael Voss's contract year. So if we're trading away Curnow and TDK and Jack Silvani and Elijah Hollins, all these players that might be departing the club, he won't be happy heading into 2026 when he needs to perform to not have any other players in return. So I do like the idea of Petracca. I still feel like we can get Petracca and get another big fish because I don't think Petracca will cost overly much. Knowing that he is contracted to Melbourne, they will be paying a lot of the contract if he was to get traded away, and maybe we might need to chip him maybe 500, 600K, and I'll be happy to do that 100%.
Oh,
and
easy.
I still feel like we probably
I'd pay him 800. I'd pay him 800, considering the players who've come out of the team. Silvani, who was offered 700, didn't take it. Koning 1.1, that's 1.8. And how much is Charlie on a year? 900?
Yeah, exactly.
800, 900?
I'm more saying that the contract that Petracca is on at Melbourne, we probably won't need to pay the 800K. Because they will actually take care of that. So we probably would have to pay maybe 500, 600K out of our own salary cap, which is great. Even if it's 800K, I probably wouldn't go over that. But even if it's when he is out of contract at Melbourne and he's playing at Carlton, and maybe it might work out that he's at 900K, I'm still somewhat happy to pay that. But anything more than that, I'll be like, because if we're looking towards next year, we might be able to add other assets along the way, as I've already said, but then we could get a big fish in 2026. So that's kind of the question back to you, Daffy Boy, is do you think that there will be a way that we will get another big fish into the club if it's not Petracca? And if there's any other names kind of going through your head right now, because I just feel like if we are trading these guys away, I'm actually happy because that means that we will definitely bring in a big fish. But I just don't know exactly who that could be.
Yeah, it is. It's risky, I think, when you lose these players, and Voss would be thinking the same, like you just said. You said it perfectly. That's why they're so firm on Curnow, because he's probably thinking, fuck, I can't lose him. Even though I think we're both in agreement that I'd rather show him the door if we get something in return. Otherwise, he's going to have to be professional and suck it up and play next year, which I just think that'll put a lot of pressure on the club, in my opinion. But it's interesting. I think if he requests a trade to Carlton, you must get the deal done, because you don't get players of that quality. If he goes out and he's chatting to Carlton and Collingwood, and he goes, I want to play for your club, I think it'd be a little bit of what kind of message does that send to the fans if a player of that quality wants to come and we go no? The only way it would be is if the trade deal is too much or the money is too much we have to pay, which I understand. But I think if he does request a trade and it is to Carlton, the deal will be done. They'll find a way to get it done. In terms of the other big fish, I know Zach Butters is on the list, but there's so many teams that are going after him. I know there's big mail in terms of the Western Bulldogs really, 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 really going hard for him. But the relationship with Chris Davies, I think he's come at the perfect time. He lived with Butters for 2-3 years. So the start of his career at Port Adelaide, I'm hearing that he lived with Davies and his family for the first 2 years of his career. So you've probably got the perfect guy if you are going to persuade him to come. But like you said, I don't know if he leaves this off season unless we just throw everything at Port Adelaide. You just combined everything you've got, and you go to Alberton and you knock on the door and you go, here is all these picks for you. Take it or leave it. Otherwise, we're not giving you anything. And maybe they do that because obviously they've got the new coach in. Does Josh Carr want to go into more of a reset mode? Or does he want to go, fuck, I need this player for next year? That's probably where it stops from the coach. I think it'd be whatever the coach wants there in Josh Carr, because, he might go, I think we can push finals. Me personally, I don't think Port Adelaide are going to be very good next year. I think they'll miss the 8. I think they've probably lost a little bit of, I don't know, they've just lost some quality in there and forward quality. I know they've got Georgiades, but who's that next guy? I know Marshall was injured, but is he that guy? Lukosius, he's been injured. He can be that guy, maybe a little bit flaky. So maybe he goes, let's go to reset mode. Zach's going to go anyway. And let's get it the best deal for the club and get it moving, get it done, get the picks in, get the young guys in. So, yeah, obviously, if you're going to choose Petracca or Butters, you're going to pick Butters. That's a pretty, I'd imagine, a simple point of view.
Yeah. So this is probably the last thing we'll kind of touch on that before we wrap up this video. But now that we've touched on potentially how Petracca could fit into our midfield and potentially our forward line next year, I guess now the conversation goes to how we could get this trade done. So whether I personally think it will be a 3-club trade if it is to get done, and that will obviously involve Gold Coast, and then that means that Flanders will go to Melbourne, we get Petracca, Curnow goes to Gold Coast, and maybe we get something in return. And maybe that is a guy like Bailey Fritsch. I don't know exactly what that trade would be, but I think players of this kind of caliber are the clubs. It needs to be a 3-club trade, even 4.
Yeah.
I just don't think it is 2 clubs, because I just think these guys are too important, and I don't think picks is enough to get these guys over the line, especially since they're out of contract. So now we'll probably maybe spend 5 minutes or however long we need to kind of talk about this. But if there is a potential trade right here with Petracca, how do you think that trade would, what do you think that trade would look like? Do you think it potentially could be Curnow, Flanders, Petracca, and just picks surrounded with that? Do you think it potentially could be Carlton and Melbourne straight trade? Maybe we send a first and maybe a second for Petracca? Or do you what's your mind thinking right now about how we could potentially get this Petracca trade done?
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways you could probably look at it. Do you want to just go with a separate deal and not even involve the Curnow trade? Maybe you do the Curnow trade separately, get the picks for that, and then use it for Petracca. There's so many different ways, but one light bulb went off in my head before we recorded, and I think we spoke about it before on text about maybe we do this 3-team trade, and it's not going to be simple. It's not going to be. We know that people to go, Daff, Pato, it's not going to be that simple. We know that it's going to be complex. There's going to be picks flying everywhere. 2027 picks, but I think the base I look at, it's looking like it's trending towards Flanders going to Melbourne. I know we spoke about him and we would love him at Carlton, but if he wants to go to Melbourne, we can't change that. Yeah, we can't change that. You can't force his hand unless they can't get a deal done and we swoop. I don't know. But, like you said, it'd be Flanders to Melbourne. And I'd imagine there's a pick go their way as well because they're losing Petracca. But like you said, the basic thing was Flanders to Melbourne, Curnow to Gold Coast, and Petracca to Carlton. That would be one of the craziest trades ever in terms of just a rotating circle. And like you said, right now, obviously, we don't know where picks are going to go. We don't know what picks they're going to have. It seems like Gold Coast are going to offload their first rounder because they've got a lot of father-sons.
Yeah.
So does that go to Melbourne? You know what I mean? Or, because we're getting Petracca. So I don't know. Do we get a pick? I'm not sure. I know we're getting rid of Curnow as well. So like you said, I think the basic thing is those 3 players go to different clubs and then they work out the picks, whether Carl might want to pick out of that. Melbourne might want to pick out of that. I'd imagine Gold Coast, would they want to pick out of that? They're getting Curnow. So I don't think they would. So I think all in all, I think the starting point for that is obviously, like you said, Flanders to Melbourne, Curnow to the Suns, and Petracca to Carlton. And obviously they'll work out the picks from there. And right now, I don't want to be saying, we want this pick, because it's going to be never ending. Because there's going to be other deals done in the trade period that might end up, Gold Coast might end up having another higher pick that they can offload. Melbourne might trade into the top 10. We might trade in the top 10. For all we know, we've got the high picks. I know we're getting rid of Curnow, but maybe we offload Curnow in a pick and then get another first rounder in return, maybe not a higher one, but maybe another one to just make sure we get this deal done. So it's exciting, Pato. I know we both love this side of things. People might go, we're crazy for it. I don't mind if they do say that, but maybe that's the way it's done, because it looks like Curnow really wants out, Petracca wants out, and Flanders wants to head home to Victoria. So it kind of ticks off every single box for the players, and each club gets something in return that they want. So it's exciting, Pato, because I think it's going to be the biggest trade, all in all, not just for Carlton. I just think this trade period is going to be the biggest it's ever seen. I think it's going to be the most movement we've seen in terms of not just the star players. Obviously, you got the other players, which we'll touch on in a sec with us and other clubs. But, you spoke about it. Merritt going, like a club captain leaving. Oscar Allen's another club captain leaving. And if Petracca goes and Curnow goes, look at all the A graders just moving clubs. So it'll be absolute madness, Pato.
I think this, you've already said it, but I just think this is by far the biggest trade. And it's because you said then about the big stars that are potentially looking elsewhere, but also the players that are rumored, and we haven't even spoken about those guys like the Zach Butters one. I know Zach Butters most likely would stay, but there still is conversations going around for Zach Butters, and it's actually crazy. But Daff, before we wrap up this video, I've just very quickly whipped up a potential trade, 3-club trade, and tell me if you think this is sort of accurate, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm all ears, Pato. I'm all ears.
So Gold Coast. So I'm just going through what the clubs receive.
Yep.
Gold Coast received Curnow.
Yep.
Carlton received Petracca and Fritsch. Melbourne received Gold Coast first rounder, Carlton future second, and Flanders. So that means that Melbourne get rid of Fritsch and Petracca, and they receive Flanders, Gold Coast first rounder, and Carlton future second. I think that's a good deal. I think Petracca needs to be probably Flanders and probably a first rounder, because I think Petracca has that value. And to kind of add that extra bit for Fritsch to get that over the line, I think Melbourne would accept that. And I think Gold Coast would definitely accept Curnow, straight swap for Flanders and a first rounder. And then we get Petracca and Fritsch. So I'll say it again. Gold Coast give up their first rounder and Flanders. They get in return Curnow. Carlton receive Petracca and Fritsch. We give up Curnow and our future second. And Melbourne give up Petracca and Fritsch to receive Gold Coast first rounder, Carlton future second, and Flanders. Duff, tell me your thoughts, and do you think there are any kind of overs or unders for any clubs in this sort of trade talk?
I love it. I absolutely love it, because, like I said before, in those trades, you've almost got to find a way for all of the teams to win. In a way. And you're not always going to, they're not going to beat a team in a trade massively. Sometimes you do. I know with the Jack Bowes and the Gold Coast one, where Gold Coast gave Bowes and pick 6 or pick 9 or whatever, that was just a ridiculous one. But in terms of that trade, you look at it, like the Melbourne, do they offload Fritsch? Do they want to get rid of Fritsch? Maybe that's the question mark. That's the question mark, because they might go, well, if we lose Petracca and Fritsch, we're not going to have anything forward to the ball. Unless, obviously, they might bring something in with the first rounder they receive. I believe they receive a first rounder from Gold Coast. And they get Flanders, and they get a second rounder.
And a future second from us.
Yeah, so I think I'd say that's fair, because you get a ready-made player in terms of Flanders, and you get a first rounder that you can use, whether it's in the draft or looking for maybe a forward they need elsewhere. So, I really like a Pato, and I know this trade prospect will go off on social media. I'll be whipping up Guernsey swaps of bloody Sam Flanders and a Melbourne kit and Fritsch and a Carlton kit. But this is the conversations we need to be going through. And I imagine they would be going through this type of stuff as a list management. They would have it on the board. Is this realistic? What can we give up? What's the maximum we can give up for Petracca? What's the maximum we can give up for Flanders? They might be still interested in him. There's other guys on the market as well. So, no, I really like that trade, Pato, and it's very, very great, quick thinking from you.
Yeah, I personally think, looking at it, Melbourne and Gold Coast are winners. I still think Carlton need a little bit more for Curnow, because we're trading away our future second and Curnow for Fritsch and Petracca. I still think we can get a little bit more. This is just something that I've whipped up, and
Yeah.
I have only had the best interest of Melbourne and Gold Coast. I still feel like we should be getting the farm for Curnow. But I don't
Yeah.
know if it will really go down that path, because
Yeah,
everyone
that's the
knows that
thing.
Curnow is looking elsewhere and he wants to get out of the club. He doesn't want to play under Michael Voss. And I feel like, unfortunately, as much as we don't want Carlton to fold, I feel like we will, because I think having a guy like Charlie Curnow at the club next year, for the mindset he has, is not acceptable, and that is not what Michael Voss wants in 2026, and that is not what Carlton wants in 2026, and that's not what Carlton fans want or need in 2026. We need every single player to buy in. And unfortunately, I think the mindset of Charlie Curnow is not sort of like, it just isn't what we need for 2026.
No,
So
he's not committed. He's not committed.
of course,
Sorry, but I've heard people, and I'm fine with people's opinion going, keep him, then he has to be the professional. I don't mind that. But I just think it's going to hurt the club. Not like he might go out there round one, kick a bag, and we all forget this. But it's more about when he plays bad, the whole footy world is just going to climb on the top of our football club. And that happened this year. You could see the players were way down. Cripps and Wiedering. The pressure of whatever it was the craziest pressure you've ever seen. From the final sign of the Richmond game, this started. I'd say the pressure and just this, it's crazy. You can't deal with it. And people go, oh, but they're professionals. When the whole football world is on your shoulders, just cramping down and just pissing you off, like, you're not going to perform on game day. And if we have this guy playing for a football club, he's not committed. Well, what does that send to the younger players?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the younger players don't want to play with a guy. Of course, they want to play with Charlie Curnow, but are we going to get the best Charlie Curnow if he's not committed? I don't think so. He could prove us wrong. And I'd hope he goes out and wins the fucking Coleman and wins us the grand final, Pato, and all will be forgotten. But that is just, I'd say that's a 1% chance in terms of him coming out and absolutely tearing it apart.
Yeah, spot on. I'm just having a look at it, and I'm like, I just think with Gold Coast, I think potentially, because they're giving up the first rounder and Flanders, I think potentially Gold Coast might need to give up maybe a second rounder as well and send that to Carlton, and then that probably I think that deal probably gets done.
Yeah, so
looking at that.
So if that gets done, we would get
it's pretty much
Fritsch and two second rounders.
No, and a second rounder. So it would be Gold Coast are giving up Flanders, their first rounder, and their second rounder for Curnow. I think that's a trade that they would be open to. And that means that Melbourne receive Flanders, Gold Coast first rounder, and our second round, and our future second. And then we get Petracca, Fritsch, and Gold Coast second rounder. I think that's a deal 100%. Because I think every single club gets it done. And obviously Curnow is the guy that has the most value, but it's valid. He's contracted until 2031.
Absolutely.
I think 100% this guy, and I don't think it's outlandish to say that he has more value than Petracca. Like, Petracca is 30, but he's not contracted for as many years as what Curnow is. What's Petracca's contract?
Oh, he'd
30,
be
29?
Yeah, I think Charlie is 29, I believe.
I think,
but he signed a 6-year in 2023. I don't know. I don't think he's in the 30s.
Maybe I think we're Wiedering.
Wiedering's 31. I know Mac Andrews got the longest one, which is 2032 at the moment. So they'd be about the same in terms of contract status. Like, not same as in value, but I think same as in contract status. But yeah, I really like your trade, man. I think I'd like to know, for people listening, go in the comments below and then tell us what you want in return for Curnow and what you think we could give up and what we should give up for Petracca. I'd like to see what people's thoughts are, because there's so many different opinions out there.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's contracted until the end of 2029. I'm thinking of Jacob Wiedering. He was 2031, I think. So, I mean, I personally think no matter what, whether it's down to contracts, whatever, Curnow is has more value than Petracca. So Gold Coast simply have to give up more to secure Curnow, and I just still feel like this is the trade that can get it done. But yeah, I feel like if any of these players get traded, it needs to be a 3-club trade. But Daffy Boy, before we wrap up this video, is there anything else you would want to touch on for Petracca going to Carlton or Curnow potentially going to another club? Is there anything else that's on your mind before we say goodbye to this video?
Nothing much. We've covered it really well, I think, in terms of, our kind of initial thoughts to the news and what we think can get done in terms of a Petracca deal. We're not saying it's going to get done. It obviously has to want to come to Carlton in the first place. So I know we had that interest there last year, but it could have changed by now, and it could, and Carlton might not want to look at it. Let's be real. They might go, okay, yeah, maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't go for that. So, yeah, it's once again, I think we've said this every episode. It is going to be an intriguing, I don't know how many weeks it is till the deadline, but that is going to be the craziest few hours that the deadline. Hopefully some of the deals we get done are done before then, but I'd imagine they won't. I think if Carlton know they can get a deal done for Curnow and it's done and sealed, hold him till the last day.
Yep.
Make it hard. Make him shit himself. Do it with 20 minutes to go.
Yep.
Go, fuck you. You know what I mean? Get a deal done. I think they will get good value. Even if that deal doesn't even include Petracca or anything, I think Carlton will find a way to get it done. I think a team will go, fuck it, we need him. Whether it's Sydney still could be involved. I think he's met with the coach. That's concrete interest for me. So it's just a matter of what they want to give up. Do they trade into the top 10 to try and appease us for a deal? I don't know. But, yeah, interesting watch.
I mean, I was sold that it would be Sydney, but I just don't think they really have the assets to get the deal done. And I know, once again, it could probably be a 3-club trade, and maybe it would be Sydney, Melbourne, Carlton, and Gold Coast, maybe a 4-club trade.
Yeah.
And then Flanders find his way to Melbourne, Petracca and Fridge find their way to Carlton, maybe Curnow finds his way to Sydney, and then, I don't know, maybe Papley, Gordon, and bloody the whole farm from Sydney find their way to the Carlton Footy Club, mate, because Curnow's just that good. But before we wrap up the episode, I just thought I would also say about the Wiedering contract. Yeah, so he's 2031. So there are a lot of players now that are in contract, superstar players at our club. Yeah. So I just feel like if we can add one more asset, and whether that is Petracca, whether that's Butters next year, it's exciting times. And that's just why I feel what we would say once again, it's probably the biggest trade period in probably Carlton's history, I would say, because I think we're still in that window. But if we can get 1 or 2 big fishes, that can really catapult us for the 2026 season, Daffy Boy. But as always, to every single blue bagger out there and anyone who supports the channel of Baggers Chat, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on this YouTube video. As Daffy Boy said, if you do have any thoughts on how this trade could potentially get done, please let us know, because we love to hear your thoughts, and we definitely try and reply to every single comment that comes our way. But also make sure to check out our podcast platforms as well. We aren't uploading these videos onto our podcast platforms. We will save that for next year when we do more of an episode sort of related content. So we'll try and save that for then. But if you can get around that, please make sure you do. And also get around our socials. We'll be well and truly active through trade periods. So make sure to keep watch for that. But to you, Daffy Boy, take care of yourself, mate. Make sure you contract Christian Petracca and get himself over the line, please. And every single blue bagger out there.
The Baggers.